feel free to bring them. So thank you, Tyler. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, first off, just want to say thank you, Zane. His golf swing is better than mine, but I can admit that.
Not around the office.
Okay, off the record. Also, thank you to AJF. They've been wonderful partners. My goal here today is just to give you all the right information, and hopefully next time you come upon solar on your next transaction, instead of being triggered by it, maybe we can have the attitude of we shall see. Appreciated the words that Zane shared this morning. The vibes are high, chakras are aligned, so we're ready to get into it today. In full transparency, I'm a statistic. I used to be a real estate agent with Keller Williams Sonoran Living, so I do come in peace. I do have some perspective of what it's like being on the other side, and a couple things that I've learned throughout my experience in real estate as well as solar is we probably have a lot more in common than we don't. Because number one, obviously, you know, if you as a real estate agent, you hear the word solar salesperson, you're pretty triggered by it. My salespeople, when they hear, hey, I'm going to talk to my real estate agent, they're usually pretty triggered by that as well. So
Unless they're a Russ Lyon agent.
Yep, unless they're a Russ Lyon agent. So ever since I've been in the solar space for the last 10 years, I've always had this thought in the back of my mind is, you know, how do we build this bridge? Because like it or not, solar is still going to be around. People are still going to get solar. And that's just the way it's going to continue to work. But the solar space is in a very interesting place right now. And I want to give you just a high level overview of how these transactions take place. And then do you want to click me to the next slide?
Yep.
Number one, how do these transactions take place from the point of sale through the installation process, through the actual funding by the bank? And you'll see how that's pretty similar to the real estate process. But most importantly, where it comes to when you're dealing with clients is you're always after the sale, after the installation most of the time. And so what does that look like down the road? What happens if their installer goes out of business? What kind of warranties, transferability? What are the different solar purchase or leasing options that are out there right now? There's some very big things changing just as soon as next month in the solar realm. Moving forward, that's going to change completely how solar is sold. So I want to get you up to speed with that. And then basically by the end, hopefully you'll see the value in partnering with AJF, doing a solar inspection. I can't tell you how many times, you know, over and over again, how important that is. Just to get some visibility on what's actually going on for your client. I'm sure Allie could share several stories of people getting solar inspections, saving anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 on a transaction because, you know, the solar system wasn't working properly. We had to go out and make repairs. And so it's just going to give you more tools in your tool belt to have that confidence as you come across these solar deals, to have just a better understanding of what's going on. So in a nutshell, the way solar has been sold for the last 10 or 15 years, typically there isn't just one company in the transaction, okay? Normally, somebody's going to knock on your client's door, they're gonna call them on the phone, or your client's gonna go online or go to a trade show, and somebody is going to sell them solar, okay? Now, most of the time, the person or the company that sells them solar is just an LLC that was started, and then normally they contract out the install to an installation company. So we've seen transactions where there could be 2, 3, 4 companies involved, from the sale to the permitting to the utility approval to the actual installation of the solar system, and then what happens beyond that. So you can imagine there's a lot of opportunity for misinformation, for things to get lost in the cracks. And one of the negative sides I would say about the solar industry has been is it's not regulated. You could have an 18-year-old kid straight out of high school sell somebody a $100,000 solar loan or lease with 0 credentials, 0 accreditation, 0 training. As long as the customer, you know, signs the loan documents and understands what they're signing up for, that transaction will take place and be finalized. And once it's installed, there's really not much that the consumer can do outside of fraud to be able to, you know, change that transaction. So where we're different is we do everything in-house. So at Bright Home, you know, from the point of sale through the installation, all the permitting, the jurisdictions, even 20 years down the road, all of our customers are our customers. Another thing we've been focusing on in the landscape of solar is accreditation, because there's not too many of those out there. But we are APS QTI certified, means APS has vetted us. We're SRP certified, and then we're Navapache Electric. If you do anything in the White Mountains, we're certified with that utility company. So we are the only solar installation company in Arizona certified by all three. And really what our company motto is and what we're all about is powering a better experience. And in solar, typically that starts with communication up front with the customer for them to understand, number one, you understand what you're signing up for. Number two, putting them in the best position possible if they do want to go solar. And then number three, making sure that if something goes wrong down the road, that we're going to be around and have a resource for them. Are you still paying the electric company for power every single month? You're not only losing money, you're investing in someone else's future, not your own. Bright Home Energy has over 400 5-star reviews and over 100 5-star reviews on the BBB. That means real homeowners just like you are already making the switch with quality and peace of mind. We are the preferred solar installer for Solar Edge Technologies in Arizona. Not a title that was given, but a title that was earned through quality, structure, and peace of mind. As a NABCEP certified solar installer and an APS qualified technology installer, your solar installation with Bright Home Energy is not good, it's top tier. So the choice is yours. You can either keep paying your utility company every month, making them rich, or you can make the switch to solar and start investing in your future today. As you'll see now, so the solar industry right now, before we get into the most exciting part, which is transferability, the solar industry is in a very dire place right now. The last 2 years and moving forward, it's going to get worse. Hundreds of companies in Arizona have already went out of business. Titan, if anybody heard of Titan, saw them at the Phoenix Suns arena. They were the nation's largest installation company. They went out of business. Even more so than the installation company, and what's even scarier is solar lenders are going out of business. A company called Sonova, a company called SunPower, which was the largest solar lender in basically the world, they're out of business. More and more solar lenders right now with what's happening currently, which I'll get into, are basically freezing. They're stopping taking on new clients. And so everything is funneling towards one or two main solar lenders. And it's not really a positive for the real estate space. So what is happening is with the one big beautiful bill that was recently passed, they passed it through so that now, basically starting through the end of the year, January 1, if any of your clients want to buy solar, they can no longer qualify for the 30% federal ITC tax credit. That's gone. Most companies like myself, we are not accepting any purchased contracts beyond October 1st to guarantee that they can get installed by the end of the year and still receive that 30% tax credit. And so that is going away completely. So what you're going to find is as you move forward in the real estate space, you're going to see less and less purchased solar, which is a problem for you. And I think it's a problem for the industry. Now, on the other side of the big beautiful bill, the 30% tax credit is still there, but it's there for leasing companies. How many of you have run into a leased solar transaction? Keep your hand up if it was a smooth, easy, good transaction. Okay. Yeah, there's one-offs. We'll talk about that. And so that is the future of solar right now, is it is shifting harder and harder to leasing, which I'll kind of dive into, kind of the economics of that. We have a resource sheet that has most of the major leasing companies, but that's why I think now more than ever, it's very, very important to try to get educated on what solar is and what it's going to look like moving forward. Transferability of lease, ownership, and financing. So currently, when you run into these transactions, there's three ways to acquire solar. The most clean, easy, and effective way would be purchasing the system, okay? Purchasing, buying it outright, that's going to have the highest appraisal value. That's going to give the best value to the customer because when that home is transferred to the new owner, you could figure out a sales price for the actual equipment that's an asset on the home, but that's going to take care of most, if not majority, of their current utility bill, depending what utility provider they are with. So that's obviously the most ideal, clean, easy, clean-cut transaction. Now where we're seeing a shift is in ownership. So financing of solar. So if somebody doesn't have the funds to go out there and purchase the system outright, qualify for the tax credit to reimburse them for that up to 30%, they're going to finance the system. Now, most of the time when somebody finances a solar system, there's no money out of pocket, there's no down payment. Typically what the goal is whatever their average utility bill is, they can get a loan payment that's typically somewhere around that. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more. What most people don't understand with these financing products is they usually have a 6 to 17 month ramp up period where that lender will either give them a lower incentivized payment or even no payment, but whether it hits the 6-month mark or the 17-month mark, that loan is going to reamortize. And if that homeowner doesn't take that 30% tax credit and pay down the loan, typically their payment is going to jump 40 to 50% on average above what it was when they started. And so a lot of times somebody will sign up for solar, let's say their payment's $150 a month, they're like, great, I'm saving money. Month 17 comes around, they either don't qualify for the tax credit or they do and they keep the money and they don't put it back into the loan. What will happen is now that bill will go from $150 to $230 a month, which, you know, some people say, hey, I'd rather take the $12,000 tax credit, have the extra $80. But now what happens when they go to sell the home? Okay. What we're running into lately is a few things. Number one is these lenders are requiring at least that 30% to be paid down on that loan before it transfers, which for the buyer is probably a good thing, because what has happened is people will sign up for solar knowing they're going to sell their home. They get the 30% tax credit. They transfer the loan while it still has the minimum payments. Now the new owner has to come up with $10,000 to $15,000 to buy that down, or they leave them in a worse position. And so for transferability, that's going to be one question to ask, or one thing to figure out is, hey, was that 30% tax credit put back into the loan? Because if it wasn't, that's going to hold up the deal. Number two, we're also finding it more and more difficult. About 3 years ago, we were selling 0.49% interest rates. Every loan's a little bit different too, and I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but one of the other problems in the solar industry is unregulated lending, okay? So what you probably haven't heard before is they charge what are called dealer fees. So let's say back in 2021, we could offer a 0.49% interest rate, which everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. But what they didn't know is that lender tacked on 25, 30, 35% of the cost of the system or of the loan in the back end of the deal. So basically they were just buying that down from prime. They weren't really getting they were getting a 0.49% interest rate, but they're paying another 30% for that. One thing that is positive though that's happening in the industry is that now most of these lenders are getting away from any type of dealer fees. So a very common lending option we have right now is like a 20-year note. It's 7.99%. We still have some that go down to 3.99%, but I've seen some lenders charge up to 45% of the loan just to have a 3.99. Okay, so those are some things just to keep an eye on. As far as the lending aspect goes for transferability, normally they have two options. One is they can pay off the loan. So that's one good thing about ownership is no prepayment penalties, especially if they've put the tax credit in there, and whether the new owner wants to pay it off or the seller wants to pay it off, pretty easy to transfer that. Or as long as they have usually around 650 credit, they can just take over that monthly payment. It just gets put in their name and they keep on paying that. Lease transferability. It definitely varies company to company, and this is what's so difficult. For example, if you run into a company called Sonova, so they're going out of business. And one of my friends, Ben Marquez, he's with eXp Realty, he said, hey, I'm trying to buy a property. They have a lease through Sonova. He's like, we're going to pay the lease off. He said, but they're still going to keep a loan on it till the end of the term, or a lien on it for the end of the term. So that's one thing that, none of us knew. Sonova had probably somewhere in writing that you can literally pay the lease off, but they're still going to have a lien on the property up to the end of the term, whether that's 20 or 25 years, which is a complete nightmare. I don't even know how that's legal. But now Sunnova's like out of business, so good luck getting a hold of them. Another company, they are still around, Sunrun. They used to be in Costco. They've essentially pulled out of Arizona, but they still do have a lot of accounts here. Most of their criteria is just have a 650 credit score and then be willing to take over the payments at that front. That's mostly what you're going to run into in the leasing aspect. There's typically not too many opportunities to pay a lease off, but a few of the leasing companies do have a clause that after year 5, they will allow it to be purchased. They just don't give you any sort of criteria of what that purchase price would be. And then one question I do get, and one thing we are seeing a decent amount with old Tesla leases that are now Solar City, is they're starting to expire. And so always get the question, what happens at the end of the lease? It's still a little murky, but essentially they have 3 options. Option number 1 is they can continue the lease on for another 5 years at a pretty low monthly payment. Like with Tesla Solar City, we're seeing them cut their payment by 50, 60%. And I think there's a reason for it. Number 1, the other option is they come out and get it, and they have to repair the roof and they have to pay labor and time to go take the system off. They would rather just keep them leasing it for another 5 years. Even at a smaller amount, that's going to make them more money than them having to send a crew out to take everything down, repair the roof, and make sure it's back to a good working order. And then the last option would be they can purchase the system from the leasing company for whatever the desired or agreed upon amount is. So when it comes to transferability, this could be a good sort of stopping point for a moment. Any questions? Anything anybody has about that? Yeah, start here in the front.
Well, so I'm in the middle of one right now.
Okay.
And the seller ownership is paying off the loan at the end when we close. But the challenge has been that the seller's not able to really get hold of Fusion Power.
Okay.
And so they're in Chandler. So it's a really slow process. So what would happen if you close escrow on the house, but the loan's paid off, but the warranty that is transferable to one buyer? So after the original purchaser of the seller,
Sure.
they get one subsequent owner with the limited warranty. So what would happen if that doesn't transfer by close of escrow? So the original owner's still on the warranty, even though there's a new owner on the property, which is our buyer. How do we process through that in order to get our buyer on that warranty? Because the process is really slow. And we close Friday.
Okay. Yeah. Great question. I can't speak for Fusion. I know they still are in business from last I spoke. I could probably try to run a contact for you, but the way we operate, we have the same thing. So this is probably a great quick segue into warranties. So whenever you come on a solar system that's on a home, typically there's going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 different warranties and warranty holders. Number 1, the one you're talking about is typically workmanship, roof penetration, the actual physical install that was done by Fusion Power. Same thing with us, they probably have a 10 or 20 year warranty. It's transferable to the next owner. In our situation, we get calls all the time where they're like, hey, we bought this house, we're your new customer. And we're like, oh, cool. And then we send them that. So I don't think it would necessarily have to be done by close of escrow. I wouldn't imagine there's anything in their verbiage.
The notice has been submitted, and even in the
Okay.
even in the lease or in the contract for the solar system company, it says that the seller has to initiate the transfer notice.
Okay.
So they went on the website and issued it, but then it's like crickets. So we're just trying to figure that out. And then the second question I would have then would be with APS. So it's totally seamless, right? They
Yeah.
just contact APS.
Yep.
So in a situation where, let's say, a warranty doesn't transfer because a company goes out of business.
Yep.
And the system is working just fine, but there are issues with the system.
Sure.
What do? Do you revert back to the manufacturer's warranties, or do you just pay out of pocket? Who do you call and what do you do?
Yeah, perfect question. So in the regards to warranty holders on the system, anywhere being from 2 to 4, every manufacturer, whether it's solar panels or an inverter, they are going to have some type of warranty on that equipment. So whoever manufactured the panels, so if something's going wrong with the panels, you would contact, if you can't get a hold of the installation company, you can contact the manufacturer and they will have a warranty on that. And then the same with an inverter. Typically, you know, in the almost decade we've been installing, I could count on a couple fingers how many panels have went out. It's very, very rare. Typically it's the wiring and it's the inverter. And so the inverter company, whoever it's listed on the side of the house, they would be the ones to contact about those warranties.
Okay, and then the final question. What if a buyer just says, I don't even want to use the solar system anymore? It's hooked up, but I'm over it. How do you get that converted back?
Converted back to not solar?
Non-solar.
Yeah, you can just flip the switch off and it'll start running from the grid. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Real quick, because we come across this all the time also, and I know it's going to be a range, but what is the range to have a system removed, to have a roof redone?
Yeah, so we do R&Rs. Typically what you'll see in the industry is companies will charge anywhere from $150 a panel up to $300 a panel. We're right around $175 a panel. So that's just a ballpark that if you're saying, hey, need to get the system taken off, do a roof, and then put it back on. One thing, you know, it's also situational. We own a roofing company. So if somebody was referred our way, used our roofer, we'd do it for free. So different things like that. But just as an average, probably plan on $200 to $300 a panel.
Okay, real quick. I've done a lot of adult communities in like Sun City and Sun
Yeah.
City West, tons of solar out there.
Yep.
And from what everybody's told me is if you have a lease, it's better to keep the lease going. So when you sell the house, because once you own them, you are responsible for the monitoring and things. Like you can't always get somebody out there to help you. So if the panels don't produce enough electricity or you have any problems, it's better to be under a lease. That's what they all tell me.
Sure.
I don't have solar on my own house, but
You're
I've
good.
learned a lot about this through real estate. And I was trying to figure out, I was asking Tina Tambor from Crawford Report the other day, how many solar, she doesn't have any solar reports. Solar is becoming like more and more common, and I think it is gonna be a hindrance in us reselling some of these homes now. I've got 2 sellers with solar right now. Everybody's gone out of business, they don't even know. They have nothing, they have no production, they have no app, they know nothing. I mean, I'm trying to help them figure out their own solar system on their house
Sure.
so we can try to sell it.
Gotcha. Yeah, so a lot in there to unpack. Number one, so we have multiple streams of revenue, but one where we've found recently is, you know, you can contact me, we can get out there, look at the solar system, figure out what's going on. Kind of started with our relationship with AJF doing a home solar inspection. Obviously, if you're going to sell the home, you know, partner with AJF, get them to set up an inspection for us to come out there. But there's resources. Even if, you know, whoever companies went out of business, a company like mine who's certified with the utilities, we can go out there, try to figure it out and get you some answers and some resources. Because without that, you're right. It's like if they don't know who it was and there's no one to call and everyone's out of business, like where do you go? And that's where this solar checklist is going to come in handy, as well as just getting an inspection through AJF is going to solve a lot of those problems. And then one last thing before we move to the next question, there are a couple, I know everybody hates leases. There are a couple minute benefits to having a lease. One is everything is warranted by the leasing company, the third-party owned company, for the term of the lease. So even if they have a battery, and normally batteries only have a 10-year warranty, they're going to back that battery for 25 years, which is nice. And then the second thing is a lot of these leasing companies do have a production guarantee, meaning that the system has to produce a certain amount of kilowatt hours throughout the year. And if it doesn't, they will actually cut them a check for the difference on that. Whereas if you do own your system outright, you typically aren't afforded that same level of, you know, warranty and eyes on the system.
So could a company like yours take over? Like say somebody's got an abandoned solar system company, could a company like yours come in and take it on and continue on with their service?
Yeah. Yep. So they could just contact us. We could bring them in-house. Depending, you know, what's going on, it's like if we can fulfill their warranties through the manufacturers, we will, and that wouldn't cost them anything additional. But if it's a manufacturer that, you know, who knows, it would just be a case-by-case basis.
So the warranty thing I understand, but you know, like with an HVAC system, you can purchase a maintenance program.
Yeah.
If somebody owns, you know, the system, is there maintenance programs out there?
Yeah, so we do offer one, more on the terms of monitoring. So with solar, it's fairly low maintenance for the most part. The only thing that you're really doing, if somebody goes solar, is they should have an app where they can monitor their system and see production. We do offer a monitoring service. It's usually 15 to 30 bucks a month. If they work with a few of it depends on their inverter company, but we offer that where we'll keep an eye on their system. We'll get them logged into their app. We'll make sure they have all their warranty information with the manufacturer. So there are some programs out there. It's just typically, unless something's wrong, there's nothing wrong. So I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like you don't even have to spray your panels off. You don't really have to do anything. As long as it's working, it's working. But when it's not, obviously there's a problem and you want to get it fixed.
If you're taking a listing that has solar, do you guys do pre-inspections so that the owners know what they're looking at before they go under contract? We've been talking mostly
Yep.
about from the buyer side, so.
Well, we do standalone solar inspections, so.
Yeah.
With Bright Home, their bread and butter is not doing the inspections, that's why we put them with them. So if you wanna do like a standalone solar inspection, we would call us, we do all the coordination, it'd be Bright Home.
Yep.
And get you a report, just like we would with the resale.
I think that's nice to add in documents with the listing package.
Yeah.
Tom, I appreciate all the information.
Yeah.
Love Alley. Hey, Jeff's awesome, so don't take this personal. It sounds like to me, from my background with mortgages and securities.
Yeah.
There's no federal oversight in the solar industry. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you.
There's a lot of similarities to payday loan business in my mind.
Yeah, no. Now, what I can say is we're marching swiftly towards regulation. Some of it may be a little too late, but yeah, it's going to get pretty regulated. And we're seeing that with, talking to several people. A lot of the companies that started as, mortgage, or they started as mortgage companies and became solar loan companies. Like you have Fifth Third Bank, you had a company called Loan Pal. I think they were Paramount Mortgage. Now they're Good Leap. So yeah, there hasn't been tons of federal oversight, to be honest. Even with the terms of tax credit, we had a customer, she was doing like a news story. Fox News was interviewing her and they're like, well, hey, how was it like filing your tax credit? She's like, oh, it was great. I just put the price I paid for it and that was it. And they're like, no other documentation or like nothing? They're like, nope. Like, all right, cool. So yeah, it's a little scary, but kind of weird. Yeah, so great question. Moving down, unless we have any other pressing, maybe I'll answer some of these. Just to go over some common warranties. Inverters are always going to be the biggest pain point. So an inverter is the computer on the side of the home. It's converting the power from DC to AC. And those typically have either a 12 or a 25-year warranty. We provide all of our customers with a 25-year warranty because it's not if, but when that's going to go out. So that's a good wealth of knowledge to have, like, hey, walk up onto a solar system on this home. How new or old is the warranty or the inverter, which we can get through an inspection report. Okay, it's at 8 years old. Can't find the warranty, or maybe it's a 10-year warranty. That's going to go out in the next few years. It's going to be several $1,000s. Maybe that's something you can negotiate in, right? Those are little things that you probably don't think about or don't know, that it's like, hey, how can we use this solar inspection to be able to negotiate better for my clients? Because if their inverter warranty is only 10 years, it is going to go out and it is going to cost them several thousands of dollars. Same thing, hey, they're going to need a roof in a few years. Okay. Not necessarily the seller's problem at that time, but what is the seller's problem is they put solar on the home, and now for the buyer to get a new roof in a few years, they're going to have to spend, $3,000 to $6,000 taking the system down, getting the new roof, putting it back up, and so those are little things right there that you can use. The next thing are the panel warranties. So the positive in all this is most every solar system you come upon should have some sort of warranty still attached to it, unless it's older than 20 to 25 years, which very few systems are nowadays. So most panel manufacturers that I've seen, at least over the last 5 years, have a 25-year warranty on all of the panels. So rest assured, most, if not all, the solar systems you come across, if there are issues with the panels, there's typically a pretty good resource, or they are under warranty. Where it gets a little more dicey is when it comes to the inverter, and then even more so when it comes to the installation company and maybe warranties they had, because if something happens to Fusion, that warranty is great, but nobody's going to step in for free and cover that warranty if something happens to Fusion. And then sort of lastly, we've already touched on this, what happens if the solar company goes out of business? Companies like mine, what we're seeing now is a kind of an interesting thing. So Titan went out of business, and somebody who worked for Titan got their customer client list of like 60,000 customers, and they've been calling them, not like scaring them into like having to go on a maintenance plan and pay all this money for them to service their system. But there are companies like mine that are out there that like, hey, we'll go out there for a couple $100. You know, I forgot, what is the solar inspections? Are they usually like $300 to $700, just depending on? Yeah, something like that. So $300. You know, we're going to go out there and take a look at it. Somebody doesn't have to go sign up for some long-term agreement with the company and pay $500. You know, we're seeing people paying a couple $1,000s for a company just to come out and look at it. Leverage AJF. It's well worth it. It's going to save you guys a lot of time and money. It's going to save your clients a lot of time and money and stress. And we can just get to the bottom of what's actually going on and provide some real results with, hey, here's what a price of that could be. You know, may not be down to the exact penny, but it's going to give you enough in negotiation to be able to utilize that to your advantage. So, other questions?
Yeah, most all the solar companies place a deed or a lien against the property, correct?
Yeah, great question. So most solar companies, whether they're...
Question, Tyler?
Yeah, so most solar lenders, whether you're leasing it or purchasing it, there is typically a UCC1 filing. Now, depending on what lender it is, sometimes it's on the panels, not the home. With third-party owned, sometimes it's on the home. And then usually if they're doing it through a credit union, it's definitely on the home. So there's always a UCC1 filing anywhere, even if they say, hey, there's no lien on this. Well, UCC1 filing, lien, same thing. It might just be on the panels, not the actual home, but still, you can't sell the home with the UCC1 on the panels. So same thing.
A company that's out of business, where do you?
Yeah, so the only time that would come into a problem is like Sonova. We don't have any answers on that. But if it's like an install company that went out of business, they don't have filing on that. It's always the lender. So whoever owns or holds the note to that is the one that you can find that has the UCC1 filing.
But if they're out of business, can they just take over the solar? Is it just there? I guess, I don't know.
What we're finding with Sonova, because they're going through bankruptcy, somebody's going to step in and buy those accounts. So chances are, you know, it is a bank, it's recurring revenue. Somebody's going to step in at some point and own that. The chances of a client just getting a free system, probably very low,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I've had a couple agents promote that.
Oh.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. Somebody somewhere is going to own that, and it's not the homeowner, unless it's paid off. So,
Other questions for Tyler? I know you got more out there. Anybody? I got a couple. Might spur on some other questions. Let's say a seller wants to understand the value of their system before listing. Is that something that you could come out and analyze, assess the system and say, you know, you own it or you lease it, whatever, here's what we think it's contributing to the value of the house?
yeah, typically there's a lot of factors because yes, we can give them a price, but once again, just kind of referring back to them doing the pre-inspection, that would give us the best idea of what's working and what actual equipment's there, what's going on, and then we could give them an idea from there.
And in the report, if you guys want samples too, we can't give you like pricing, because we're just doing an inspection just like we would on, you know, anything. What's producing, what's the functionality of it. But we'll let you know the energy production too, and what we're seeing in the report, which is helpful, right?
And a good rule of thumb is if it's leased or financed, the value they're going to give to it is pretty low, if not zero. If it's paid off, there's also some websites, I think ones like Energy Sage, or I'll have to pull it up. I can get it to you, but there is one where you can go actually put the equipment in, you know, what kind of panels, inverter, how old they are, and it will give like a third-party ballpark price. Usually we don't see any added value unless it's paid off.
I went to a J. Joseph's appraisal class, and the max that they'll give an appraisal will give it is $15,000 on a home system, the max. It's like a swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's what appraisal is. Still valued, but not what you pay for.
On the solar?
It was like 5, 10, or 15,000, like that.
Yeah, and it is situational. That's what's tough. It's not regulated. We see articles that it could add 2, 3, 4% maybe to the value of the home if it's paid off. But once again, it's still only going to be worth what somebody agrees that they're willing to pay for that portion of it.
Another quick question, when you're talking about whether that 30% tax credit was applied or not and could raise the payments, is that something that's pretty easy to identify in the documentation? Let's say I'm buying a house, it's a nice low payment, but I want to be aware of whether that's happened or not and whether it could go up by 30% or something.
Yeah, probably not super easy to identify in initial documentations, but I would imagine in disclosures that would just be something you would want to ask, because that's going to impact like who's financing it, purchase or lease. If it was purchased, hey, did they apply that 30% ITC towards the loan? If they did, you're in a good spot because at least 30 to 40% with the state tax credit of that system has been paid down. You're going to have a good low monthly rate, but if they have not, you would want to negotiate for that to be put in. And chances are it probably is going to have to be put in before it's transferred anyways.
Awesome, good to know. Yes.
So so you're doing leases, you're involved with the lease and the ownership, right? Depending on what the customer's looking for. Your
Correct.
company.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say a 1,500 square foot home or a 2,000 square foot home, fairly new. What is their loan going to be for something of that type if it's a fairly new home?
Sure.
Like, is it a $30,000 loan they're taking on? I mean, just what's the average?
Yeah, great question. So right now our average system size we're seeing is about 7 kilowatts. Average probably price is $250 a watt. So you're probably looking anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000 on average. If you're looking at that 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home. A few things that are changing in the industry, I think for good, is we are seeing more than ever battery attachment, which if it's a Tesla Powerwall 3 and can back up the whole home, there is some really good value with that. One thing we're also pioneering in the state, very few installers are doing this, especially at the level we are, is battery only. So you're gonna start running into homes that have 0 solar panels that attach a Tesla Powerwall 3 or 2. They charge up from the grid at off-peak times, and then they use that power to get them through the on-peak times. So that's probably something you're going to see in the next few years pop up is, holy cow, this home does not have solar but has a battery, might be leased, might be financed. Same rules apply generally, but that's another thing you're going to be running into.
And weren't you saying some of the new home builders are maybe starting to do some of the battery use?
Yeah. Yep. So we're partnering with some home builders, Taylor Morrison and others that are very interested, Camelot Homes, in essentially just adding that as part of the package. So I will say that's what's going to be happening. So with the utilities in general, not to go down a rabbit hole, all of these utility companies here, we have problems with data centers coming in, not enough power for people that want to use it. And so storage is going to be a very big thing, because these utility companies are unrolling virtual power plant programs where anybody that has a battery on their home with or without solar, they'll actually buy that power back from them during certain peak times, where the customer can make $200 to $800 a year, which isn't a crazy amount, but it is something that can go towards their investment just for having a battery on their home. So definitely more and more of that you're going to see.
Okay, regarding the tax credit,
Yeah.
A lot of solar leases that I've seen, they've got the payment structure in the actual lease. So
Yep.
from 0 to year 20, it's X dollars a month. Would that be without the tax credit, or does that include the tax credit? How do we know if those payments are what the buyer will actually pay going forward to year 20?
Yeah, great question. So we use the term lease, but really what it is third party owned. So these leasing companies, what happens is when somebody leases a system, what's going on behind the scenes is these leasing companies are actually purchasing that equipment, and they are the ones filing for the tax credit. So if you run into a lease, the only thing you have to keep an eye out for is what's called an escalator. So if somebody signs up for a lease, they can do it as 0% escalator, which if we're using $150 as an average, and they do a 0% escalator, they might start at a payment at $180, but it stays there for 20 years. Versus if somebody has like a 1.99% escalator, they might start them at $150, but every year it goes up by 1.99 and compounds. And so by the end of 20 years, they're paying $260, $270, $280 versus somebody on a 0 escalator would be still at 180. And that's where we also see heartburn with buyers coming into a lease situation, is that escalator, because they know every year it's compounding by 2%, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but you read through the terms of that lease and that payment from the beginning to the end almost doubles.
When we installed our system, it has to be attached to APS first. APS takes all the energy and then sells it back to me, basically. So if I get the Tesla batteries, can I try to bypass that system and keep my own energy and only give them a little?
Yeah, as much as possible. And that's another thing, great question, because electricity is not like water. You have a hose, you can kink a hose and hold it there. Electricity has to go somewhere. So if it's right now and you're not at home and you have solar panels on your roof, all that power is going back to the grid. Now, luckily they are putting it in like a bank account of on peak and off peak where you can get it back. But typically what ends up happening is you're buying it back. You're like selling them at a cheap rate, buying it back at a higher rate. So that's where batteries now, all that electricity will just go store in your battery and stay there for you to be able to use instead of going through.
Disconnect it and then reconnect
Yeah.
the batteries and then take it.
Yep. So we also do expansion systems. So if somebody moves in, they don't have enough power, we can add a new system. We can add a battery. What we're finding now is adding batteries solves most of the problems. And they're a great resource for that. And right now you can still get the 30% tax credit on a battery just like solar, but that's going away at the end of the year as well. But batteries are definitely the wave of the future. So, yeah.
How much costs the battery?
Say what?
How much costs the battery?
Right now a Tesla Powerwall 3 is about $9,000. Depending on the electrical setup, you could budget another $2,000 or $3,000 just depending what we have to do. But somebody can get a battery for around 10 grand versus a solar system for 40 or 50. And that's why you see a big appeal of people going battery only right now is 10, 15 grand. It's going to give you similar benefits to having solar versus paying 30, 40,000 bucks or having a 25-year lease that you're tied into.
Very good. Thank you, Tyler.
Yep.
Let's show our
Cool.
appreciation for Tyler.
Thanks, y'all.
and Howie. Really helpful, great information. Appreciate it very much.